They said.
Suspect arrested in South Carolina attempted murder. Fayetteville police on Sunday night arrested a man sought in South Carolina for attempted murder. Police said Timothy Christopher Turberville, 50, was arrested without incident. Residents in the area of Ashgrove Drive near Methodist University notified police of Turberville's whereabouts, and Turberville was sought in connection with the stabbing and cutting of a woman in Florence County South, taken to the Cumberland County Jail. Officials in Florence County were notified of his capture.
Hearing is tonight on Clark residency. A three-person panel will meet today to consider an accusation that State Senator Ben Clark has moved out of State Senate District 21 and thus is ineligible to run for re-election. Clark has repeatedly said the accusation is bogus. Senate District 21 covers all of Hope County and the northwest corner of Cumberland County, including Spring Lake and Fort Bragg. Clark faces Spring Lake physician Naveed Aziz in the Democratic primary. The winner faces Fayetteville Republican Timothy Lever in November. Spring Lake Alderman James O'Gara filed the residency claim against Clark, and Aziz's campaign has promoted it. O'Gara contends that Clark lives at a house Clark owns in the Vander area east of Fayetteville. The house is in Senate District 19. Clark says his primary home is a large family house in the Rockfish community in Hope County. Clark was living there when he was first elected in 2012. Clark has said he has documentation to prove the Hope County home is a primary residence. O'Gara has said he has evidence that Clark has made the Vander home, which was more recently built, his primary residence. State law defines a person's residence as the place in which that person's habitation is fixed, and to which, whenever that person is absent, that person has the intention of returning. The State Board of Elections and Ethics Enforcement appointed Harvey Butch, Rayner, and Jeff Long of the Cumberland County Board of Elections and Robert Bond of the Hope County Board of Elections to consider O'Gara's complaint. The hearing is scheduled for 5:30 p.m. at the Cumberland County Board of Elections office, located at 227 Fountain Head Lane, Suite 101 in Fayetteville. It is open to the public. Staff writer Paul Wolverton can be reached at pwolverton@fayobserver.com or 486-3512.
Survey hints at hidden Arsenal Park relics. Archaeologists to discuss findings from field study Tuesday. A geophysical and archaeological survey of historic Arsenal Park in Fayetteville, completed earlier this year, reveals lots of buried archaeological features on site, according to the principal investigator. Based on the field study, it's likely that some of those features are related to the Civil War era Fayetteville Arsenal. Sean Patch, who is also an archaeologist and remote sensing specialist with New South Associates Incorporated of Greensboro, is scheduled to present the results of his findings Tuesday at Highland Presbyterian Church on Highland Avenue. The presentation, Archaeological Insights on Arsenal Park, is set for 7 p.m. It's free and open to the public. Many of those features identified date from the post-Arsenal period, post-1865. They are related to the houses that were there, Patch said last Monday by phone. Those houses were demolished over the years, I believe in the late 1990s and early 2000s. But the field study employed non-invasive ground-penetrating radar as well as targeted shovel testing also revealed archaeological remains likely related to the Fayetteville Arsenal, he said. There are lots of buried archaeological features in Arsenal Park, he said. David Winslow, a Winston-Salem-based consultant for the North Carolina Civil War and Reconstruction History Center, said representatives of the proposed facility are excited about the preliminary findings. We're commissioning a second and more extensive archaeological investigation, he said. As part of that effort, Winslow said, center officials have put out a call statewide for 10 elementary, middle, and high school history teachers and 10 at-risk students to help with a planned follow-up investigation. It will be a more extensive dig, he added, and is expected to be a final dig on site. That work will be done in late July and early August, according to Winslow. Including side money for the school teachers and students, he said, the cost for the first two phases has come to about $88,000. The funding comes from a $5 million appropriation from the state for the initial development of the Arsenal grounds. We're doing all the stuff we need to do to responsibly build on site, Winslow said. The proposed $65 million North Carolina Civil War and Reconstruction History Center will occupy a 6-acre site on the grounds of the Fayetteville Arsenal. The U.S. Army Arsenal was established in 1838. 23 years later, in 1861, a federal arsenal surrendered to North Carolina militia forces at the onset of the Civil War and was turned over to the Confederate States of America. Union General William T. Sherman and his troops destroyed the facility in March 1865. On March 12th, destruction of the arsenal began. 2 days later, it lay in rubble. The underground features remaining from the former cluster of the late 18th century and 19th century houses in that part of the city are easy to detect with a GPR, Patch said. At the same time, those anomalies can obscure older or more subtle features that officials at the North Carolina Civil War and Reconstruction History Center and Museum of the Cape Fear are really interested in. One of the challenges of the arsenal, the high visibility of the latter remains makes it more difficult, but not impossible, Patch said. His teams of investigators identified features 100% related to the arsenal, he said, but they were less confident with some of the others. We can't say with certainty. Using contextual data and the strength of the GPR anomalies, we have a fairly good circumstantial case. Some of these features are likely related to the arsenal. Winslow called the fieldwork important because the proposed 60,000 square foot history center will be built on land outside the footprint of the arsenal. Groundbreaking is scheduled for Wednesday. We want to make sure that we do the archaeological research and make sure we're not disturbing any archaeologically important areas, Winslow said. We really felt a responsibility to do our homework, our archaeological research. As Patch noted, the ground-penetrating radar is non-invasive. We can identify all kinds of anomalies, he said. Buried foundation, buried PVC pipe, buried sewer pipe. Many times we use this in cemeteries to find unmarked graves. It's more difficult to say with more certainty what those anomalies might be. With Arsenal Park, we're looking at some linear anomalies out there. They should have strong reflections. If we can eliminate other possibilities, such as the latter neighborhoods, Patch said, investigators will be able to better assess what lies underground that's linked directly to the arsenal. The investigative work was done in 2 phases over a cumulative period of roughly 2 weeks in December and January. The initial phase was the GPR survey. This is a non-invasive way to identify buried objects without having to excavate. From an archaeological perspective, this means features of interest can often be found without having to dig. The second phase was conducted to better target the archaeological areas of greater interest. As of last Monday, the New South Associates reports remained under review in the North Carolina State Historic Preservation Office, Winslow said. He was uncertain when the review would be completed. And archaeological insights on Arsenal Park, Speaker Sean Patch, a registered professional archaeologist, and the short documentary The United States Arsenal at Fayetteville, North Carolina, will be presented at Highland Presbyterian Church on 111 Highland Avenue. It's Tuesday at 7 p.m. It is free and open to the public.
County Board to discuss school funding. The Cumberland County Board of Commissioners is expected to discuss funding for Cumberland County schools at their meeting today. The board's Finance Committee voted 2-1 last month in favor of basing funding for the school system on enrollment instead of property tax revenue. The change would have to be approved by the full Board of Commissioners and the Board of Education to go into effect. Commissioners and the school board have had funding arrangements that set the amount of money going to the school system since 2002. The agreement initially sent about half of the county's property tax revenue to the schools beginning in the 2003-2004 fiscal year. In 2011, the county started giving the school system a set amount based on the previous year. Commissioners and school board members reached a new agreement in 2014 that gives the schools an increase in funding the next year and the following 3 years. The agreement had a hold harmless provision that protected the school system against a decrease in property taxes during the last year's revaluation. The county commissioners had discussed keeping that agreement in place until the school system hired a new superintendent. The school board hired Marvin Conley Jr., the chief of staff and strategic planning for the Wake County school system last week. He is scheduled to start July 1st. Commissioner Marshall Fairclough voted against the proposed changes at the Finance Committee meeting, saying he wanted to continue the current agreement while doing away with the hold harmless provision. Commissioners Glenn Adams and Jimmy Keefe voted for the revision, which would give the school system $1,575 per student, a total increase for the system of about $51,000 this year. The per student amount is more than other school systems in the region, county officials said. Commissioners also are expected to meet in closed session to discuss a legal matter. The meeting is scheduled for 6:45 p.m. in room 118 of the courthouse. Staff writer Steve Devane can be reached at sdevane@fayobserver.com or 486-3572.
Inside Politics, League launches election info website. The League of Women Voters have launched vote411.org, a hub for election information, a news release said. The site includes candidate questionnaires, customized ballots for voters, polling locations and early voting dates, locations, and times. The website is designed to be a one-stop destination for nonpartisan election information for the May 8th primary. Early voting begins Thursday. Our goal is to help all voters make informed and confident decisions, League of Women Voters of North Carolina Co-President Janet Hoy said in the news release. The best way to do that is to provide every voter in the state all the information they need in one place in a straightforward and comprehensive manner. North Carolina residents can go to vote411.org and enter their address to get a sample ballot that lists all races and candidates that will appear on their actual ballot on Election Day. The release said website users can also access questionnaires that candidates have submitted. The League of Women Voters said in a news release that the organization does not edit or abridge the answers, so users can be confident they are reading the candidates' positions in their own words. It's a tremendous resource for candidates as well as voters because the candidates have a unique opportunity to present their positions without worrying about spin or inaccurate editing, League of Women Voters of North Carolina Director Luis Romanoff said. The questionnaires are developed by League members in each county, so the questions are also relevant to the issues in those specific races. The League of Women Voters, founded in 1919, is a nonpartisan education and advocacy group focused on election and voter information. The North Carolina chapter was created in 1951. Vote411.org was made in 2012 in several North Carolina counties and since then has attracted more than 116,000 users. While an off-year election usually doesn't attract high voter turnout, the current political climate has many people fired up about civic engagement, Hoy said. We believe North Carolinians could turn out in record numbers, and we're doing everything we can to ensure they visit www.vote411.org before they make it to the polls. We're making it easier for voters to make informed decisions and participate. Meetings. The Cumberland County Democratic Party will hold an open house at its new headquarters at 907 Hay Street on Thursday from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. All Democrats are welcome. Refreshments will be served. The headquarters will be open through the general election in November. For more information, call Roberta Waddle at 624-6516 or Sharon Johnson at 489-0100. Understanding why we are Democrats and why this is important now will be the message that retired General Rodney Anderson brings to the next monthly meeting at the Cumberland County Democratic Men's Club on April 24th. The meeting will be at the College Lakes Recreation Center at 4945 Rose Hill Road from 6 p.m. to 7:30 p.m. Anderson is the former president and CEO of the Greater Fayetteville Chamber and brings with him 33 years of service in the U.S. Army. For more information, call Al Puster at 309-3542. The Cumberland County Progressives will meet on Saturday at 2 p.m. at Spinner's Pizza on 2805 Rayford Road in Fayetteville. Radia Johnson, the CEO of that Morningstar Youth Development and My Sister's Dreamer Domestic Violence Support Center, will be the guest speaker and will discuss the rising number of suspensions regarding boys in Cumberland County schools. Attendance is free and open to the public. For more information, email Cumberland County Progressives at gmail.com or call 960-7048. The Cumberland County Republican Men's Club will hold its monthly meeting Tuesday at Morgan's Chop House on 201 South McPherson Church Road. The meeting will begin with a buffet dinner at 6 p.m. followed by a candidate forum at 7 p.m. Cost for the event is $18, payable at the door by cash or check. Republican candidates speaking are Senator Wesley Meredith, Representative John Suzuka, Judge Lou Oliveira, Cindy Blackwell, Linda DeBoer, Patrick Pesch, Ralph Molina, Ron Ross, Victor Starling, Carlton Sally, LaRue Wyndham, and Charlie Baxley. Seating is limited and reservations are required. Individuals may RSVP to John Laub by email at tag8@earthlink.net or by calling or texting 308-3004. To submit items for Inside Politics, email them to insidepolitics@fayobserver.com. The deadline is Thursday.
School to honor Bragg educator. More than 60 years ago, in a move that would cost her a job, Mildred Poole moved to defend education for all children, regardless of their race. She opened school doors for black children to join classes at Fort Bragg 3 years before Brown versus Board of Education would force integration nationwide. She was fired a few years later. I just did what my spirit told me was right and what I knew I had to do. Poole told the Fayetteville Oberver 33 years later, there's no accounts of harassment Poole may have faced, but old reports said the general at Fort Bragg received a lot of crude telegrams about her. On Wednesday, Mildred B. Poole Elementary School will be dedicated on Fort Bragg. Poole, who lived in Fayetteville, was 91 when she died in 1992. It's the first school on Fort Bragg not named for an soldier. We're excited, Gwen Bell, Poole's granddaughter, said when the family learned the school would be named for her. Everything she did was for the best interest of the children, Bell said. She loved children. The school in Linden Oaks Military Housing Community off NC 87 in Harnett County serves about 530 children in pre-kindergarten through 5th grade. The recognition came from recommendations were passed to a naming committee for final approval. Poole was the first chief administrator and principal of the Fort Bragg school system in 1948. At the time, white children attended Fort Bragg's 8-room school, while black children were sent off post to attend a school in Cumberland County. A few years later, a black Army lieutenant asked why his daughter couldn't attend classes at Fort Bragg. Poole didn't have a reason and made arrangements for the girl to attend classes. Poole is also recognized for hiring the first black teacher at Fort Bragg in 1951. Poole didn't talk about her efforts, her family said. In fact, Belle said she wasn't aware of her grandmother's actions until she helped Poole sort through some boxes in her home. One summer they were cleaning a basement where they kept boxes. She kicked the box and wondered what it was. A cousin pulled it out, and it was a box of hate mail and death threats, Belle said. She said, "You need to take that out to the burn pile." Belle said she admired her grandmother, followed her intuition to do the right thing despite opposition. And even in the face of hostility, she didn't hold a grudge. She picked up and moved on, she said. She never spoke ill of the people who fired her. She said, "Where do you want me to serve next, Lord?" Poole was forced out of the Fort Bragg school system in 1956, but she continued to work in education. She was the supervisor for the Clinton City Schools in Sampson County. There's no way to estimate how many students she educated over her career, but Poole's son Calvin knows it's thousands of students. She had a lot of faith in young people, he said. Her guiding light was grades 1 to 3, teaching kids to read. Her passion for education was obvious, the younger Poole said. She was demanding, he said. She demanded excellence. Staff writer Amanda Dolisinski can be reached at adolisinski@fayetteville.com or 863528.
Facebook will find Profits and Regulation by Jonah Goldberg. Here's a bet. Congress will end up cracking down on Facebook with tough regulations that Facebook will probably protest quite vigorously. And then Facebook's profits will go up. Mark Zuckerberg, the founder and CEO of Facebook, withstood 2 days of questioning in Congress this week. You tell Zuckerberg took it very seriously, not least because he shed his traditional t-shirt and hoodie in favor of a grown-up suit. Again and again he was asked whether he was opposed to regulation. You embrace regulation? Asked Senator Lindsey Graham, a Republican from South Carolina. I think the real question, as the internet becomes more important in people's lives, is what is the right regulation and whether there should be or not? Zuckerberg responded. Many are focusing, understandably, on Zuckerberg's stance on the countless and complex free speech issues raised by Facebook's dominance and reach. Zuckerberg kept suggesting that artificial intelligence could soon solve most of those problems by policing hate speech and perhaps fake news faster than human monitors ever could. Senator Ben Sasse, a Republican from Nebraska, had a line of questioning that exposed at least some of the problems with handing over these responsibilities to the real-world equivalent of HAL from 2001, A Space Odyssey. Can you define hate speech? Sasse asked. Zuckerberg admitted that beyond cause for violence, he couldn't come up with a definition of the sort of speech that should be banned by an algorithm. Added Zuckerberg, I do generally agree with the point that as we're able to technologically shift toward especially having AI proactively look at content, I think that that's going to create massive questions for society about what kinds of obligations we want to require companies to fulfill. Let's assume Zuckerberg is correct. In the future, much of our speech will be policed by our robot overlords. As Zuckerberg hinted more than a few times, political leaders will need to get involved in the regulation and administration of how these AI systems will work. We'll probably set up some new agency or a new division of the FCC to provide oversight. And which company will have the loudest voice in the drafting of these new rules? If history is any guide, the obvious answer is Facebook. The standard story of the progressive era taught to high school kids and college students alike is that the government has come to the rescue time and again to curtail the excesses of irresponsible, selfish, or otherwise dastardly big businesses. Upton Sinclair, in his book The Jungle, famously exposed the abuses of the meatpacking industry, prompting the government to impose new regulations on it. Left out of this tale of enlightened regulation is that the meatpacking industry wanted to be regulated, something even Sinclair admitted. The famous trusts were no different. In 1909, Andrew Carnegie wrote a letter to the New York Times suggesting government control of the steel industry. The story repeated itself during the New Deal. The malefactors of great wealth that FDR demonized welcomed government regulation. Famed lawyer Clarence Thoreau issued a report on the New Deal's industrial codes and found that in virtually all of the codes we have examined, one condition has been persistent. And industry after industry, the larger units have for their own advantage written the codes and then, in effect, and for their own advantage, assumed the administration of the code they have framed. Why would the titans of capitalism welcome regulation? Because regulation is the best protection against competition. It stabilizes prices, eliminates uncertainty, and writes profits into law, which is why AT&T convinced Congress at the beginning of the 20th century to give it a monopoly over phone services. I suspect one reason Zuckerberg wants AI to be essential is that Facebook can afford to make AI essential while potential competitors can't. Regardless, I have confidence that when all is said and done, Facebook will look more like the 21st century AT&T from social media. Jonah Goldberg is an editor-at-large of National Review Online and is a visiting fellow at the American Enterprise Institute. You can email him at jonascolumn@aol.com.
This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina 28303. If you have any questions or concerns, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number 1-844-709-5656. Your radio hosts are
Robert Bean
and Beverlyn Simonette, and we are proud to serve you today. Days obituaries, the death notices. The following deaths have been reported. See upcoming editions of the Fayetteville Oberver for complete obituary information. In Cumberland County, William Richard Bill Sessoms, 79 of Eastover. Jernigan Warren Funeral Home will be handling the services. In Cape Fear Region, Thomas June Bethay Jr., 87 of Rayford. Bowie Funeral Home will be handling the services. Carper H. McMillan Jr., 73 of Rayford. The Wiseman Mortuary will be handling those services. Funerals today. Lacewell, Willie Lacewell, 86 of Fayetteville. Services will be at 12 p.m. at the Colvin Funeral Home and Crematory. The burial will be at Sand Hill State Veterans Cemetery. Colvin Funeral Home and Crematory will be handling the services. Eleanor Burnett, 74 of Fayetteville. Service will be held at 1:30 p.m. at Galilee Free Will Holiness Church. The burial will be at Lafayette Memorial Park. Sullivan Highland Funeral Services and Crematory will be handling the services. Dorothy Duncan Bryan, 85 of Fayetteville. Services will be held at 10 a.m. Services will be provided by the Sidney Memorial at Sidney Memorial Baptist Church. The burial will be at Lafayette Memorial Park. And the services will be provided by the Jernigan Warren Funeral Home. Catherine Ann Walker, 75, of Lakeland, Florida. Her services will be held at 1 p.m. today at Rivers of Faith Church. Burial will be at Rockfish Memorial Park Cemetery. And the services will be provided by Rogers and Brees Funeral Home. Angela Varnum, 56, of Fayetteville's funeral will be today at 3 p.m. at Sullivan's Highland Funeral Service. And the Sullivan Highland Funeral Service and Crematory will be handling the services. In Cumberland County, also, there's William Ernest Bill Hicks, 82, of Fayetteville, died Friday, April 13, 2018. The family will receive friends on Tuesday, April 17, at 11 to 1 at Aaron Lake Baptist Church. The Celebration of Life service will be held following visitation at the church officiated by Reverend Jeff Eisenhower. Burial will take place at Cumberland Memorial Gardens. Services entrusted by Jernigan Warren Funeral Home. In the region and elsewhere, Deacon Booker T. Williams of Lillington died Wednesday, April 11, 2018. The funeral will be Tuesday noon at Wesley Chapel, AME Zion Church. That's 74 Irene Roberts Road in Lillington. The viewing will be at Wesley Chapel, AME Zion Church on Tuesday at 11 a.m. to noon. The burial will be at Wesley Chapel, AME Zion Church Cemetery. Walker Memorial Funeral Home and cremations will be handling the services. Aubrey Marie Howard, infant of Dunn, died Saturday, April 7, 2018. There will be a graveside service on Wednesday at 3 p.m. at Resthaven Cemetery. That's 500 South Burke Street in Dunn. Walker Memorial Funeral Home and cremations for handling the services.
Billy Graham. God wants us to pray even in imperfect words. From the writings of the Reverend Billy Graham. I grew up in a church that only used printed or memorized prayers. However, now that I've rededicated my life to Jesus, I want to pray on my own, but I worry that I might offend God if I pray in my own words. Is this a danger? Mrs. S.L. Formal prayers have their place, but no, you shouldn't worry about saying something wrong or offending God in your prayers. God wants us to come to Him in prayer, and He delights in our prayers. After all, if you have been a parent, did you get angry with your children when they first tried to talk? Did you turn your back on them if their words weren't perfect or their sentences were childish? No, of course you didn't. Instead, you encouraged them, and you were thrilled at their first words. The same is true with God. God is our Heavenly Father, and He loves us and yearns for us to come to Him and talk with Him, even if our prayers aren't perfect. The Bible says, as a father has compassion on his children, so the Lord has compassion on those who fear or respect Him. Psalm 103, verse 13. How can you learn to pray? Pray just as if you were talking to a close friend, because you are. Praise Him in your prayers. Confess your sins to Him in your prayers. Seek His will in your prayers, and pray for yourself and for others in your prayers. Remember, too, that Jesus Christ, who is at the Father's right hand, also prays for us, and His prayers are perfect. The Bible says, do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your request to God. Philippians chapter 4, verse 6.
Dear Abby, with Dad out of the country, boyfriend takes on parenting. Dear Abby, my husband's brother split from his wife, Charlotte, 5 years ago, and now works and lives in another country. The brothers are still quite close. His school-aged daughters live nearby and are close to their cousins and daughters. Charlotte's latest boyfriend, they have been dating for 18 months, has started insisting on hanging out with my husband and trying to bond with him. He is also jumping with both feet into the role of stepfather, especially with the younger daughter, who has just returned after living with her father for the last 7 months. It feels awkward and weird, but we are too polite to say anything to him or Charlotte because we're afraid she'll restrict us from seeing our nieces. What is your advice? Anxious in Australia. Dear Anxious, not knowing the terms of your brother-in-law's divorce, my advice is to consider that Charlotte has been with this man for a year and a half. He may be trying to form a relationship with your husband because he wants to bond with the relatives. Your husband doesn't have to be the best friend with him, but he should keep the relationship cordial, not only for the nieces, but also so his brother can stay informed about them. Dear Abby, I have an addiction to vitamin gummies. They say to eat only 2 a day, but I eat almost a container a day. They're so good. This has been a problem for 5 years. What should I do? Do I contact my doctor? I'm about to graduate from high school, and I think my new college friends will think I'm weird if they find out about my gummy addiction. Loves gummies. Gummies in Pennsylvania. Dear Loves, I'm glad you wrote. Your vitamins may taste like candy, but they are not candy. It is important that you discuss this with your doctor. The least of your troubles could be that your college friends make fun of you. What you have been doing is dangerous because it can cause unsafe levels of vitamin A, vitamin E, and minerals like iron to reach toxic levels in your system. Dear Abby, I have a suggestion about how to help the child with the broken glasses mentioned in the letter from Trying to Help in the West, February 25th. I'm a member of Lions Club International. Our local club donates the cost of visual screening and free glasses to those in need who seek our help. The Lions were established in 1917 by a businessman who wanted to start a service club that would help improve communities. The idea quickly spread to other communities and became international. In 1925, Helen Keller inspired the clubs to become Knights of the Blind in the crusade against darkness. Since then, Lions have worked tirelessly to aid blind and visually impaired individuals in the United States and all over the world. Services for the boy in the letter should be available in his area, or he can be directed to the closest local Lions Club. Member in West Long Branch, New Jersey. Dear member, thank you for reminding me and my readers about the good work the Lions Clubs do. Anyone wanting further information about this worthwhile service organization can find it at www.lionsclub.org. Readers can write to Dear Abby at dearabby.com or P.O. Box 69440, Los Angeles, California, 90069, Universal Play.
Horoscope by Stella Wilder. Born today, you're not always as capable as you think you are. You're attracted to that which is exciting and often ill-considered, and that can be dangerous. Aries, March 21st through April 19th. You're likely to find yourself in a tight spot after sharing an opinion that turns out to be quite unpopular. Find an ally. Taurus, April 20th through May 20th. You may not be able to hold your tongue today when others are engaged in a certain decision-making process. You know what must be done. Gemini, May 21st through June 20th. You may feel as though you've been overlooked, but perhaps it's just not your turn yet. Be ready. You may be chosen sooner than you think. Cancer, June 21st through July 22nd. Matter of taste has you going in an unusual direction today. Put your best foot forward and be ready to deliver the goods when asked. Leo, July 23rd through August 22nd. You're interested in coming to a greater understanding of someone else's process at this time. Perhaps you can learn how to improve yours. Virgo, August 23rd through September 22nd. Perception is everything today. How you view another's behavior in relation to yours makes all the difference. Facts are secondary. Libra, September 23rd through October 22nd. You may be disappointed to learn that someone else is choosing not to take your advice today. Still, there are others who favor your methods. Scorpio, October 23rd through November 21st. You can use the clock to your advantage today, while others find themselves bogged down by details that don't really matter. Sagittarius, November 22nd through December 21st. You may be asking too much of yourself right now. Why give others power over you by exhausting your resources? Capricorn, December 22nd through January 19th. Good and bad may become somewhat indistinguishable for a time today, and routine decisions you make will matter more than ever. Aquarius, January 20th through February 18th. The odds are in your favor are likely to increase today, but not because of anything you do. Someone else is promoting your efforts. Pisces, February 19th through March 20th. You're only choosing to waste your time if you insist on feeling sorry for yourself. Pull yourself up and get on with it. Copyright 2018, United Feature Syndicate.
Yvonne Staples had a shot at stardom, but always put her sister first. If generosity is putting others before oneself, then Yvonne Staples was the living embodiment of the virtue. Staples, who died Tuesday at 8 o'clock from colon cancer, was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 1999 along with the other members of the Staples Singers. Her sisters Mavis and Cleotha, briefly her brother Purvis, and her father Robot Pops Staples. The band was born at a church service one morning in 1948 when Pops brought his $10 guitar and the kids to sing for the congregation. They were cheered onto 3 encores, and the collection basket was notably heavier than normal. Pops envisioned a new future for the family. The gospel group exploded onto the scene in 1957 with its first hit, Uncloudy Day, and would later became an important mainstay of Memphis Stax Records, recording several top hits there in the late 1960s. The group could have been Yvonne's runway to stardom, and it was one that Mavis used to become a national R&B treasure herself. But Yvonne assumed a behind-the-scenes role. She didn't even begin adding her own vocals to the band until 1971, eventually singing on such timeline hits as Respect Yourself and I'll Take You There. Before that, she quietly made sure the band was a well-oiled machine. At an early age, Yvonne was taking care of business and subtly running things. Pops once said, according to the Chicago Tribune, even after she began singing, she stuck to backup vocals, highlighting her father's and sister's voices. She mostly only added vocals to the groups when someone else took a break, such as when Purvis joined the army or Cleola got married. Instead of focusing on her other passions, such as volunteering at a hospital for the mentally ill. She was very content in that role. Bill Carpenter, the author of Uncloudy Day, the gospel music encyclopedia, told the New York Times. She had no desire to be a front singer, even though people in the family told her she had a great voice. Her reasoning for helping out was simple. As she once said, when Daddy asked us to do something, we did it. No questions asked. The group's output slowed from a flood to a trickle in the 1980s, by which point Mavis was becoming a star in her own right. Yvonne still worked with her sister, choosing to again return to the business side of the industry, where she quietly excelled. She was very non-nonsense, but at the same time had a heart of gold, Carpenter said. But when it came to business, she was very strict. If this is what the contract says, this is what you better do. But when her father died in 2000, Mavis almost gave up on music. Without her guidance force, Pops, what did she have? Yvonne. She had Yvonne. Knowing her sister was in pain and needed her, Yvonne said Mavis down and talked some sense into her, using a few stronger words than she generally did. Yvonne got me, Mavis once said. Yvonne said, Mavis, your daddy would want you to keep singing. You gotta get up. Your daddy's legacy. And that's when she started with the other words. Damn it, Mavis, and worse, how it woke me up. And though she didn't necessarily want to, she also climbed back on stage to help guide her sister, who had become a bona fide star, who earned Grammy Awards, was friends with Prince, who dated Bob Dylan, and who sang at the White House. She was a reluctant singer, but she knew Mavis needed her, so she sang with her every night on stage. Country singer Marty Stewart, who was friends with the Staples, told the Chicago Tribune. But even then, Yvonne remained humble. She didn't want to talk about her own singing. Carpenter told the Associated Press, she said, Mavis is the star. Mavis is the voice. She never cared about attention for herself.
Full Metal Jacket actor Ernie dies at 74 by Lindsay Barr at the Associated Press, Los Angeles. Ernie, a former Marine who made a career in Hollywood playing hard-nosed military men like Gunnery Sergeant Hartman in Stanley Kubrick's Full Metal Jacket, has died. Ernie's longtime manager, Bill Rowan, says he died Sunday morning from pneumonia-related complications. He was 74. The Kansas native was nominated for a Golden Globe Award for his memorable performance in Full Metal Jacket, in which he immortalized lines such as, "What is your major malfunction?" When Ronald Lee Ermey in 1944, Ermey served 11 years in the Marine Corps and spent 14 months in Vietnam and then in Okinawa, Japan, where he became staff sergeant. His first film credit was as a helicopter pilot in Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now, which was quickly followed by a part in The Boys in Company C as a drill instructor. He raked in more than 60 credits in film and television across his long career in the industry, often playing authority figures in everything from Seven to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre remake. The part he would become most well known for in Full Metal Jacket wasn't even originally his. Ermey had been brought on as a technical consultant for the 1987 film, but he had his eyes on the role of the brutal gunnery sergeant and filmed his own audition tape of him yelling out insults while tennis balls flew at him. And impressed Kubrick gave him the role. Kubrick told Rolling Stone that 50% of Ermey's dialogue in the film was his own. In the course of hiring the Marine recruits, we interviewed hundreds of guys. We lined them all up and did an improvisation of the first meeting with a drill instructor. They didn't know what he was going to say, and we could see how they reacted. We came up with, 150 pages of insults, Kubrick said. According to Kubrick, Ermey also had a terrible car accident one night in the middle of production and was out for 4.5 months with broken ribs. Army would also go on to voice the Little Green Army Man Sarge in the Toy Story films. He also played track and field coach and Nike co-founder Bill Bowerman and Prefontaine, General Kramer in Toy Soldiers, and Mayor Tillman in Mississippi Burning. Army also hosted the History Channel series Mail Call and Lock and Load with R. Lee Ermey, and was a board member for the National Rifle Association, as well as a spokesman for Glock.
Support groups. Monday, Celebrate Recovery meets from 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. at the Aaron Lake Baptist Church, located at 1130 Bingham Drive. A multi-denominational, church-based 12-step program can include PTSD, depression, abuse, drugs, alcohol, and more. You can call them at 424-7211 or John at 723-2319. Suicide Grief Support Group meets 6:30 p.m. at the Manor Church, located at 5117 Cliffdale Road, Building A. For those who are grieving the loss of a relative, friend, co-worker, or loved one due to suicide, you can call them at 910-302-8548. Tia Hart Community Recovery Program meets from 7 to 8, located at 116 East Elwood Avenue in Rayford. You can call them at 848-1872. Al-Anon meets at 7 p.m. at the Haymont United Methodist Church Youth Activity Center, located at 1900 Fort Bragg Road. You can call them at 678-8002. Divorce Care meets from 7 to 8:30 p.m. at the Manor Church, located at 5117 Cliffdale Road. You can call Tim or Tracy at 892-5439. In Christ We Do Recover meets from 8 to 9 p.m. in an open meeting at the Hope Harbor Christian Mission on US 301 South Service Road. For chemical dependency, call Woody at 423-0608 or 424-8800, extension 272. Recovery in Action meets at 8 p.m. at the Manor Church, located at 5117 Cliffdale Road. You can call them at 867-9151.
Rampage takes number 1 from A Quiet Place by Lindsay Barr at the Associated Press, Los Angeles. After a wobbly start, Dwayne Johnson muscled his way to a number 1 opening for Rampage, but just barely. Close on its heels was the word-of-mouth sensation A Quiet Place in its second week in theaters, and not too far behind that was the Blumhouse horror Truth or Dare in a competitive weekend at the box office. Warner Brothers said Sunday that Rampage earned an estimated $34.5 million in its first weekend in North American theaters and dominated internationally too, with $114.1 million from 61 territories. Based on the classic arcade game, Rampage carried a sizable budget of at least $115 million. Although Rampage pulled in mixed reviews, it's at 50% on Rotten Tomatoes. Audiences were more enthusiastic, giving it an A- cinema score. I wasn't sure how I was going to feel on Friday. When I look at our global number of $148.6 million, there's a lot to be proud of for Dwayne Johnson, said Warner Brothers president of domestic distribution, Jeff Goldstein. Talk about a real closer. He knows how to bring it home. That Friday, of course, was Friday the 13th, and audiences had the choice between 2 wide-release nail-biters to spend their entertainment dollars on. The buzzy thriller A Quiet Place that dominated the charts last weekend, and a new horror from the shop behind Get Out and Split, Truth or Dare. After its stunning debut, John Krasinski's modestly budgeted A Quiet Place fell only 35% in weekend 2, adding $32.6 million to its domestic total, which is now just shy of $100 million for Paramount Pictures. Truth or Dare also found a sizable audience that was mostly young, 60% under the age of 25, and female, at 60%. The PG-13 rated pick stars Pretty Little Liar alum Lucy Hale. With a budget of just $3.5 million, the film took in a terrific $19.1 million over the weekend, just the latest in a string of successes for the Blumhouse and Universal Pictures partnership. They take high-quality filmmaking at micro budgets and just consistently over-deliver, said Jim Moore, Universal's president of domestic distribution. Everyone at Universal was just thrilled to be in business with these guys. Sliding into fourth place was Steven Spielberg's Ready Player One with $11.2 million in its third weekend, and in fifth was the R-rated comedy Blockers with $10.3 million. Also, after a limited release, Wes Anderson's stop-motion animated Isle of Dogs added 1,385 locations and took the number 7 spot with $5 million. Chloe Zhao's well-reviewed Indie the Rider also debuted this weekend in 3 theaters with $45,268. Ticket sales. Estimated ticket sales for Friday through Sunday at U.S. and Canadian theaters according to ComScore. Coming in at number 10, Chappaquiddick with $3 million. Taking in $3.7 million. At number 9 is Tyler Perry's Acrimony. Coming in at number 8, I Can Only Imagine with $3.8 million. At number 7 is Isle of Dogs with $5 million. Black Panther took in another $5.3 million. Coming in at number 6, Blockers is in at number 5 with $10.3 million. Ready Player One took the number 4 position with $11.2 million. Truth or Dare took in $19.1 million at number 3. A Quiet Place took the number 2 place with $32.6 million, and Rampage took the top spot with $34.5 million.
The gift of mobility. After she was injured in August 13, 2011, stage collapsed at the Indiana State Fair. Alicia Brennan said she was told she might never walk again, let alone do simple tasks like laundry. This is the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service, a United Way partner agency. We broadcast from the campus of Fayetteville State University, and our signal is carried by WUNC Chapel Hill. As a nonprofit agency, we rely on public donations. We request your support to continue our services. When making charitable donations, please keep the Southeastern North Carolina Radio Reading Service in mind. Our post office box number is 35029, Fayetteville, North Carolina, 28303. If you have any questions or comments, please call us at 910-672-1600 or our toll-free number 1-844-709-5656. Your radio hosts are
Robert Beam
and Beverly Simonet. We are proud to serve you today. Yes, the mobility gift. The gift of mobility. After she was injured in August 13th of 2011, a stage collapse at the Indiana State Fair. Alicia Brennan said she was told she might not ever walk again, let alone do simple tasks like laundry or opening a refrigerator. I was told I would never have the same memory retention, she said. With the help of physical therapy and the support of friends and family, a 31-year-old Shannon resident not only defied that prognosis, she turned the horrifying experience into a positive career change. Though she already had a degree in business management and was working in mortgage foreclosures, she said, I was tired of sitting behind a desk every day, and I was tired of being mean. The Sugarland concert disaster helped her realize she wanted to work in a field that gave people hope. Her search led her to Gillette Junior College Orthotics and Prosthetics Technology, OPT program, that she said has changed her life, and that in turn, she said, will hopefully change the lives of many others. Now a senior, Brennan is already realizing her dream. She recently returned from a 2-week mission trip to Cochabamba, Bolivia, during which she helped make prosthetic impressions and devices for some of the poorest people in South America. Organized by Steve Morrell of the Philadelphia Center of Prosthetics, the trip was an opportunity for Brennan to practice many of the skills she learned in the OPT program. One of the patients she worked with had lost her leg to flesh-eating bacteria. The prosthesis she had was being held together by duct tape, said Brennan, who covered a new device with colorful fabric. After which she said, the woman looked at me and said that she finally has a pretty leg. That was the best part of the trip for me, she said, completely changing someone's life. A desire to help others, said Mike Burnchick, orthotics professor and coordinator of JJC's OPT program, is a universal goal of students who enroll. 11 years ago, Burnchick, former director of prosthetics clinical program at Northwestern University, helped start the JJC OPT program with 5 students. Financial backing from the school's foundation and lab space donated by an electronics professor. Today, inside the orthotics prosthetics laboratory, aspiring technicians are giving Mother Nature a run for her money. This is where science and design intersect to create substitute limbs, corrective devices, and new opportunities for people whose mobility is compromised. Arthritis, birth defects, and injuries are among the many reasons the field of orthotics to straighten and prosthetics an extension of is a rapidly growing one, says Persnick, citing government compiled job outlook statistics. The Centers for Disease Control just estimate there'll be maybe 72 million geriatric patients in the near future, Persick said. We need a lot of people in healthcare to help the aging population, and yet JJC is one of only 6 community colleges in the nation that offers the Orthotics and Prosthetics Technology OPT certificate, which enables graduates to work as technicians and assistants in hospitals, labs, or even their own workshops. That is where Senior Ryan Baranowski found his future. I have my own central fabrication lab, the 27-year-old resident of St. Anne said. I can make impressions for orthotic companies. Baranowski said the first set his sights on JJC's veterinarian technology program, but then decided to switch to OPT. Now nearing graduation, he recently divided his home taxidermy shop in half so he could do prosthetic work for a doctor who doesn't have a lab. Bursick said since it began, 108 students have completed the program, which can accommodate 15 new pupils per year. Enrollment, he said, is selected. We look for 2 things. You have to be able to work with your hands, and you have to be able to handle the academics, he said. Our graduates can find jobs anywhere in the country. Our students are now starting to fill up the jobs in the Joliet and Chicago area. Burnsick said, some of our graduates are now starting to hire new graduates from here. Burnsick said 80% of the program's graduates have found employment in the field. Though the OPT certificate is a 2-year program, it is anything but easy. Baranowski said it's tough. The physics. You just have to keep going over it and over it, he said. Brennan agreed. The concept of locomotion is what most students struggle with, she said. With every extremity, it's something different, she said. How the foot reacts to the ground, how the ankles react to the foot, how the knee reacts to the ankle, and you just keep going. Bernsick said enrollment falls evenly along gender lines. Art students, he said, tend to do very well because of the sculpting work. When he brings prospective students through, he said the lab is often the deciding factor. Some see all the handwork requirements and have second thoughts, he said. Others embrace the idea of making resin molds, sewing straps, and harnesses and sculpting body parts. Students not only practice by making molds and then limbs of each other, they also make the harness that will hold those limbs, Bernsick said. Then they take the device home to see what it's like to feed yourself and use the bathroom, do ordinary things, to get an idea of what it's like to lose a limb and live with the prosthesis, he said. They go through the whole process from start to finish, he said. For those who are blessed with both right and left brain aptitude and a desire to help people, he said, this profession can be a calling. Kayla Kamiga, 19 of Downers Grove, loves the medical field, but loathes the idea of having to deliver bad news to patients. I can't be the person who walks in and delivers bad news. I want to do the good thing. I want them to have pure joy, she said. Prosthetics and orthodontics is one field that she expects will be so rewarding, giving people back a life they thought they had lost.
Comey, Trump may be compromised by Catherine Lucci, the Associated Press, Washington. Former FBI Director James Comey says he thinks it's possible that President Donald Trump might be compromised by the Russians. In an interview with ABC News that aired Sunday night, the fired FBI chief says he could not discount the possibility that Russia might have something on the president. He says he knows that's a stunning possibility and something that he never thought he'd say about a president of the United States. Still, he says it strikes him as unlikely, but something that he can't say without high confidence. Trump took to Twitter on Sunday to unload on Comey over his forthcoming memoir, calling him slippery, suggesting that he should be in jail and labeling him the worst FBI director in history by far. Trump fired off a series of tweets ahead of Comey's first interview on the book, which offers his version of the events surrounding his firing as FBI director by Trump and the investigations into Russian election meddling and Hillary Clinton's email practices. The interview will air Sunday night on ABC. In an episode shown Saturday, Comey said his belief that Clinton would best Trump in the 2016 presidential election was a factor in his decision to disclose the investigation into her emails. Trump seized on that, saying Comey was making decisions based on the fact that he thought she was going to win and he wanted a job, slime ball. Comey's disclosure shortly before the election that the FBI had reopened its investigation into her email use enraged Democrats. After Clinton's loss, many Democrats blamed Comey, and Clinton herself has said it hurt her election prospects. Trump on Sunday pushed back again against Comey's claims that Trump sought his loyalty, saying, "I hardly even knew this guy." Just another of his many lies. He questioned Comey's intelligence and place in history, writing, "Slippery James Comey, a man who always ends up badly and out of whack. He is not smart, will go down as the worst FBI director in history by far." He also suggested Comey should be in prison, saying, "How come he gave up classified information? Jail. Why did he lie to Congress? Jail. There is no indication Comey is under investigation for doing either." Asked if the president wanted the Justice Department to investigate Comey, White House spokeswoman Sarah Huckabee Sanders said Sunday on ABC's This Week that she was not aware of a specific request, but she said if they feel there was any wrongdoing, they should certainly look into that, just as they do on a number of other topics. Comey is embarking on a public rollout of his book, A Higher Loyalty, which comes out Tuesday. In the book, Comey compares Trump to a mafia don and calls his leadership of the country ego-driven and about personal loyalty. Trump fired Comey in May of 2017, setting off a scramble at the Justice Department that led to the appointment of Robert Mueller a special counsel overseeing the Russia investigation. Mueller's probe has expanded to include whether Trump obstructed justice by firing Comey. Trump has said he fired Comey because of his handling of the FBI's investigation into Clinton's email practices. Trump used the investigation as a cudgel in the campaign and repeatedly said Clinton should be jailed for using a personal email system while serving as Secretary of State. Democrats, on the other hand, have accused Comey of politicizing the investigation.
Citizenship question on census divisive. A Trump administrator plans to ask people if they are U.S. citizens during the 2020 census has prompted a legal uproar from Democratic state attorney generals who argue it could drive down participation and lead to an inaccurate count. Yet, not a single Republican attorney general has sued, not even from states with large immigrant populations that stand to lose if a census and undercount of immigrants affects the allotment of U.S. House seats and federal funding for states. In fact, many GOP attorney generals had urged Trump's census team to add a citizenship question. We always are better off having a more accurate count of citizens versus non-citizens. I see no downside in this, said Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton, Vice Chairman of the Republican Attorneys General Association. The diverging views of top Republican and Democratic state attorneys highlight how even the most basic data collection decisions can quickly split along partisan lines amid the intense debate about immigration policies. Concerns among immigrants have risen as President Donald Trump's administration has cracked down on so-called sanctuary jurisdictions, increased arrests by federal immigration officers, called the National Guard to the borders with Mexico, and sought to limit travel to the U.S. from certain predominantly Muslim countries. U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross announced last Monday that 2020 census distributed to early U.S. households will include a censorship question for the first time since 1950. He said the question was needed in part to help the government enforce the Voting Rights Act, the 1965 law that was intended to protect the political representation of minority groups. He said it will provide a more accurate tally of voting eligible residents than is currently available from a smaller sampling survey that includes the citizenship question. In a letter explaining his decision, Ross said the U.S. Census Bureau estimated that as many as 630,000 additional households might not respond if a citizenship question is included. Yet, he acknowledged the administration did not know what the actual consequences might be because it hasn't tested the change. The nation's only dress rehearsal for the 2020 census, currently taking place in Providence, Rhode Island, does not include citizenship question on the survey forwarded to residents. Nevertheless, Ross determined the benefit of including the question outweighed any concerns. California Attorney General Xavier Becerra, a Democrat, filed a federal lawsuit immediately after Ross announced the question would be added. The nation's most populous state also has the highest number of foreign-born residents, most of whom are naturalized U.S. citizens or hold some other legal status.
Rock's biggest jerk or misunderstood genius by Travis M. Andrews, The Washington Post. It's rare for Fleetwood Mac, a rock band formed in 1967, to garner headlines in 2018. Monday's news that Lindsey Buckingham reportedly has been fired shook the rock community, earning eulogies and angry quips on Twitter. There's little question that the iconic band is losing a visionary musician again in Buckingham. But during a time when pop culture is re-examining its heroes, it's important to remember that the guitarist and songwriter's personal reputation is littered with allegations of controlling, belittling, and even abusive behavior. Rock and roll is often steeped in mythology, so, like any stories about the genre, it comes down to whom you choose to believe, the camp that thinks Buckingham is a misunderstood genius or the camp that believes he's a jerk. Many of the stories concerning Buckingham come from former romantic partners. Buckingham and fellow band member Stevie Nicks might be the most famous star-crossed lovers since Romeo and Juliet, only their story ends with them playing in the same rock band and singing songs about each other. The dissolution of their years-long relationship added creative fuel to the writing and recording of 1977's Rumors, Fleetwood Mac's most successful album. But tension existed between the two long before the breakup. The young lovers released a single, eponymous album as Buckingham Nicks 2 years before joining Fleetwood Mac. The couple appeared nude on the album cover, something Nicks reportedly was highly uncomfortable with. The studio said it wanted a sexy cover, so Nicks, with her last $100, bought a loose, filmy white blouse that exposed a little skin, figuring that would do it, according to her biography, Gold Dust Woman, by Stephen Davis. It wasn't sexual enough for the photographer, who asked her to remove it and bare her breasts for the camera. Nicks protested, calling herself prude and saying her family wouldn't approve of the image. The photographer pushed, and Buckingham eventually snapped, according to the book. "Don't be paranoid," Buckingham yelled. "Don't be a expletive child. This is art." Eventually, feeling trapped and under pressure, Nicks removed her shirt and bra for the shoot. She looked like someone else, Davis wrote. She also looked tense. Nicks felt mortified by the cover, particularly when it hit shelves in 1973, and earned the disapproval of her father. She almost quit music at the age of 25. From the beginning, Lindsey was very controlling and very possessive, Nicks said, according to the biography. Things didn't improve after their breakup. Buckingham wrote, "Go Your Own Way" in 1976 about Nicks, even though Nicks had to help perform the song. The lyrics are full of vitriol, from the bluntly cruel "loving you isn't the right thing to do" to the character questioning, "Packing up, shacking up's all you want to do." Nicks was, of course, insulted. "I very, very much resented him telling the world that packing up, shacking up with different men was all I wanted to do," Nicks told Rolling Stone. He knew it wasn't true. It was just an angry thing that he said. "Every time those words would come out on stage, I wanted to go over and kill him. He knew it, so he really pushed my buttons through that. It was like, I'll make you suffer for leaving me." Things grew worse. During a 1980 tour for Tusk, Buckingham allegedly mocked Nicks on stage, tried to trip her, and at one point attempted to kick her. Singer Christine McVie was furious. She found Buckingham after the show and hit him. He later also threw a Les Paul guitar at Nick's head during the show, McVie and Nicks told the magazine. Buckingham has claimed that he doesn't remember the incidents. While that tension only continued growing, both Buckingham and Nicks have said that it fuels their creative output. "Relations with Lindsey are exactly as they have been since we broke up," Nicks told Rolling Stone in 1981. "He and I will always be antagonizing to each other, and we will always do things that will irritate each other, and we really know how to push each other's buttons. We know exactly what to say when we really want to throw a dagger in." Much darker and more concerning are the stories Buckingham's next serious girlfriend, Carol Ann Harris, shared in her tell-all memoir, Storms, My Life with Lindsey Buckingham and Fleetwood Mac. Throughout the book, Buckingham is shown doing mountains of cocaine and verbally and physically abusing Harris, which he described in great detail. As with any memoir, it's difficult to assess the validity of these stories. They certainly contrast wildly with a 1984 Rolling Stone profile titled, and this is not a joke, Lindsey Buckingham, Lonely Guy, in which Buckingham talked about how much he wanted a wonderful, sensitive, soulmate girl. This was during the fairly barren period after his relationships with Nicks and Harris ended. The profile painted Buckingham as a musical genius who spends most of his time in the studio, trying to break down preconceptions about what pop music is and struggling to be original, but also as someone who worried visibly about being the good host. Some problematic details cracked through in the piece, though. Take Buckingham's comments on Harris. At first, she was just another conquest, and even though in that very profile, Harris said Buckingham's solo record about their failed relationship, Go Insane, made her angry and sad and was upsetting, the writer said he doesn't regret making it. The only thing that is certain is that Fleetwood Mac has always been a pressure cooker. Buckingham's recent departure from the band could be for a number of reasons, but it wouldn't surprise anyone if that pressure cooker finally exploded.
I just have to do it. Teachers struggle with second jobs. Hundreds of thousands of American school teachers who work second jobs to boost their income. They speak of missing time with families, struggles to complete lesson plans, and nagging doubts over whether it's worth the sacrifices to stay in their profession. Nationwide, 18% of teachers work jobs outside school, supplementing average full-time teacher salaries of $55,100 by an averaging of $5,100 according to the latest survey from U.S. Education Department from 2015 to 2016 school year. That is up slightly from 16% in 2011-2012. Teaching is hardly the only profession where people pick up second jobs to pay their bills, and many have the flexibility to do other work in the summer when school is out. But their numbers help explain the outrage behind the teacher revolts in states including West Virginia, Oklahoma, and Kentucky. The Associated Press asked moonlighting teachers in 4 states to describe how they balance the extra hours with their day jobs and family responsibilities. Janitor. After a day of instructing first graders at Ulagatala Public Schools in Oklahoma, Melinda Dale puts on a janitor's uniform and begins cleaning the very same school building. I usually do it right after school, Dale said. Because working with first grade all day, I tend to lose my energy pretty fast. Dale, who has taught for 6 years, earns $32,000 a year as a teacher. She spends about 15 hours a week on the janitorial work, which at $10 an hour allows her to earn nearly a quarter of what she makes teaching. Lyft driver. As Lyft driver, Stephanie Lowe crisscrosses the Metro Phoenix area in her Jeep. Many of her passengers are surprised to learn she is also a full-time teacher. It's super busy to drive during the week, but sometimes I just have to do it, said Lowe, 28. She earns just under $37,000 as a first grade teacher in Toscano Elementary School, She rents a room instead of having her own apartment to keep her housing costs down. But to make ends meet, she drives for Lyft on nights and weekends and also picks up tutoring jobs. She drives more during the week when she has upcoming expenses like a car registration payment, medical bills, or supplies for her classroom. Retail worker. John Andros knows the drill well after more than a decade of double duty teaching high school and then working at Dick's Sporting Goods. He packs lunch and dinner, puts an extra set of clothes in the car for his retail job, and sets off knowing he won't be home before his daughter goes to bed. There was a time earlier in his career when he was making less than $40,000 teaching when he considered giving it up to pursue a management job at Dick's that would pay over $50,000. Now, in his 19th year teaching with 2 master's degrees, he has reached top scale, $88,000 annual as a special education teacher at Plainville High School in Connecticut. But he still works 15 hours a week at Dick's and tutors because he feels like he's still catching up financially after years of much lower earnings in an area with high property taxes and a high cost of living. He pays off his college loans 3 years ago, and he and his wife only recently got out of a requirement to pay mortgage insurance because they didn't have enough for a full down payment when they bought their house.
U.S. to sanction Russia for aiding Syria by Hope Yen and Robert Burns, The Associated Press, Washington. President Donald Trump on Sunday defended his use of the phrase mission accomplished to describe a U.S.-led missile attack on Syria's chemical weapons program, even as his aide stressed continuing U.S. troop involvement and plans for new economic sanctions against Russia for enabling the government of Bashar Assad. Stepping up the pressure on Syria's president, U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley indicated the sanctions to be announced Monday would be aimed at sending a message to Russia, which she said has blocked 6 attempts by the UN Security Council to make it easier to investigate the use of chemical weapons. Everyone is going to feel it at this point, Haley said, warning of consequences for Assad's foreign allies. The international community will not allow chemical weapons to come back into our everyday life, she said. The fact he was making this more normal and that Russia was covering this up, all that has got to stop. Trump tweeted Sunday that the strike was perfectly carried out and that the only way the fake news media could demean was by my use of the term mission accomplished. He added that he knew the media would seize on the phrase, but said it should be used often. It is such a great military term, it should be brought back, he wrote. Trump tweeted mission accomplished on Saturday after U.S., French, and British warplanes and ships launched more than 100 missiles nearly unopposed by Syrian air defenses. While he declared success, the Pentagon said the pummeling of 3 chemical-related facilities left enough others intact to enable the Assad government to use banned weapons against civilians if it chooses. His choice of words recall a similar claim associated with President George W. Bush following the U.S.-led invasion of Iraq. Bush addressed sailors aboard a Navy ship in May of 2003 alongside a mission accomplished banner just weeks before it became apparent that Iraqis had organized an insurgency that would tie down U.S. forces for years. On Sunday, Haley made clear the United States won't be pulling troops out of Syria right away, saying U.S. involvement there is not done. Haley said the 3 U.S. goals for accomplishing its mission are making sure chemical weapons are not used in a way that could harm U.S. national interests, defeating the Islamic State group, and having a good vantage point to watch what Iran is doing. We're not going to leave until we know we've accomplished those things, she said. This includes this reading of the Fayetteville Oberver. Your host have been
Beverly Simonette
and Robert Bean. Thank you for tuning us in this morning and have a wonderful day.